Next inductee is a longtime coach for the Fredonia Hillbillies, coached basketball and softball. I would like to present to you his induction into the Sports Hall of Fame, longtime coach Dave Polechetti.
Well, first of all, I want to thank my fellow directors for this great honor tonight. As a young boy growing up in Dunkirk, first on Eagle Street and then Deer Street, I can't imagine ever have dreamt about receiving such a great award as this tonight. I'm truly humbled, especially when I look back to see all of the people who preceded me in being inducted from Dunkirk, Fredonia to this hall. People like Mark Hammond, who was actually in the first class, the 1982 induction, and I'm fortunate to have one of his sons, who was one of my longtime friends, Tom, here tonight with me. Certainly, I'd have to recognize Coach Stu, our longtime Dunker coach, the late Coach Stu, and the late Roger Moore, who was Fredonia's most outstanding basketball coach in its history. Pete Crishone and Dave Crishone, my good friend Dave Crishone, who I'll mention a little bit later on. Coach Bob Moscato from Manzeni, my longtime mentor and good friend Bob Wisniewski, good friend and the voice of Northern Chautauqua County, Dan Palmer, and Coach Pat DeMore from Fredonia State, and a longtime friend and competitor, Al Muck from our City League football days and a number of other things. And again, I was also fortunate to have an outstanding young man who I had an opportunity to coach in Mike Heary, being inducted earlier. What makes this even more special tonight is I get to get inducted with another idol of mine growing up, Bob Patterson, and also eventually good friend. My fellow coach and friend also, when I started coaching softball, Deb Palmer at Panama. We had some great games against each other in the early years. Of course, Charlie Leduca, another outstanding coach from Northern Chautauqua County. And of course, people might not know this, but he's the husband of a very dear coaching colleague for many years, Annie Walsh Leduca. And of course, being inducted also with Paul Cooley, who I also had a great deal of respect for. I have so many people to thank and so little time to do it, so in an event, I'm going to move along here so I can avoid the hook. As I mentioned, Coach Stu Miller, well, I only played a couple years on the baseball team for Coach Stu, but a lot of this goes back to him. He was my elementary gym teacher back in the 50s at number 1 school in Dunkirk, and obviously he got it all started. I have to single out a man that probably has not ever been mentioned over the years here, but a man by the name of Len Catalano, who was a supporter of all the youth in the Dunkirk. He was a longtime employee of the Dunkirk School District, and he was such a supporter of the youth in town. He would open up the gyms. He would open up the gyms and hold rec programs. And some of my greatest memories are of going to the Dunkirk City League, the men's adult rec league, and watching some outstanding basketball. And in between timeouts and games, we would be shooting on the side basket. So I have to give him a lot of credit for where I am today. I was fortunate for growing up in neighborhoods where people shared the same passion for sports. And I wasn't the greatest athlete in the block, for God's sakes. So I was just so fortunate to be surrounded by a number of people, whether it was the Gould brothers or Jim Moose Michaels or Larry Malta or the Hammond brothers, Bill and Tom, my good longtime friend Dan Alessi, and another great friend, Dave Crishone. Even though he's a year my junior, I was just fortunate that I was befriended by such an outstanding athlete. Again, I've mentioned Bob Patterson being an idol of mine. I would be so remiss if I didn't mention one of Dunkirk's most outstanding athletes in its history, and that would be Bob Wisniewski, who happened to live a couple of doors down from me on Deer Street. And I don't know how he did it to find the time on his way to being one of Dunkirk's 4 sport athletes, but to take a young boy under his wing and to pitch home run derby with the wiffle ball in his backyard to this young kid on the street. I have to thank him a great deal. And I've often said it before, I owe a great deal to him. And I've said it before that I pretty much learned everything I know from Bob, and I'm not so sure that's totally a good thing. Uh, as I mentioned, Dave Kershone, I was fortunate to be a friend of his. Another guy growing up, Bill Bomano, who was an upperclassman on the baseball team, who took a young freshman under his wing and would say, "Polechetti, you can sit here with me on the bus." I was fortunate also to have a couple of young cousins who were outstanding athletes in their own right back in the late 50s and early 60s, Bob and Frank Polechetti from Dunkirk, and actually Tommy Castellana from Fredonia, who played for Roger. It was the good sisters at St. Peter and Paul who gave this 19-year-old JCC student the opportunity to coach junior high basketball. That's where it started. And as a young coach, I was very fortunate to have a lot of people to look to from northern Chautauqua County. Great coaches in their own right. I've already mentioned Coach Moore, the late Roger Moore, and of course the late Coach Stu Miller, but Kurt Raymond from Silver Creek, Mike Tremuta from Dunkirk, Bob Moscato from Manzeni, Bob Usaki from Lakeshore High School. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the late Kevin Durkin, who was my JV basketball coach, and that was the extent of my high school playing career in basketball. But it was that experience at St. Peter and Paul that gave me the opportunity of a lifetime to coach and teach at Fredonia High School. I will forever be indebted to Tom Heary, who was my high school principal. It was Tom who had the confidence to entrust me not only to coach his son, but to coach the vast number of young men and women that I was most fortunate to have come encountered with over my years of coaching. My success in coaching belongs first and foremost to all my kids, to all those kids that I was fortunate to have. And I want to recognize a couple parents here. I'm thankful for the Mahaneys to be here and sharing this evening with me because they gave me two of their sons to coach. And Greg Prechtel, a longtime coach at Fredonia, athletic director. I had an opportunity to coach his son Robbie. My good friend Jake McCune had his son Johnner, who played for me and has actually done some coaching and is looking to continue his coaching career. I'm so proud of people like that. I want to thank my fellow coaches and colleagues at Fredonia. I had many of them, from the late Roger Moore to the outstanding longtime baseball coach Pete Kershone, Tony Principe, the late Tony Principe, who I first started as a JV coach under at Fredonia after Roger's passing, Dave Ball, Dave Jambrone, the Larson brothers, Fred and Jack, Vinny Gullo, who was a former student and player for me when I was a JV coach. And I'm so proud of the job he's done with the baseball team at Fredonia. Carol Zirkle, the current women's coach. But I have to also give a very, very special thanks to Alex Conti and Tammy Ray, for they were my last two athletic directors. And I can't thank you guys enough for all of your help and your unwavering support. You guys were the best. I have to take a moment here also to thank the basketball officials who put up with John and I over the years. I know we tended to coach with a little excessive vigor and compassion over the years and passion. But I want to thank them because we did have a lot of, even in spite of what people might have said, we had a great deal of respect for all of you guys, Tom and Roger and Joe and Bob and Rich. And please don't hold me. I'm sorry if I missed anybody in here. Joe, some of you are still here tonight. In spite of the fact that we might have been the only team. Well, let me rephrase that. In spite of the fact that they would often, that Jack Fulford's classic warning to John Bongiovanni to sit he'd come over at the start of the game and say, and you have to sit your little butt down during the game. In spite of that, we might have been the only school in Chautauqua County that was allowed to have two guys up at the same time. So I thank you guys for that great courtesy. Again, Dan Palmer, I got to thank Dan for being the voice of Northern Chautauqua County sports and all that he does to promote the student athletes of not only Fredonia but all the Northern Chautauqua County schools. Dan, as I said before many times, you are our man for all seasons. I want to thank some of my friends who supported me here tonight, longtime friend Tom Panacci and John Dulce. Thanks for being here and sharing this evening with me. But I had a number of great assistant coaches who have helped me guide our teams. Rich Norton, Dick Kern, Ray Pienta, Bob Sievert, who who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, but he is still, he joined me in '02 during my second tenure, and he is still assisting Joe Pooch with the wonderful job they are doing with the Fredonia girls softball team today, Joe Pucciarelli. I have to thank Greg Lauer and Nick Petrando for volunteering the 3 years before I retired, and they've done a fantastic job with the current Fredonia basketball program. And one of the things I told Greg and Nick when they started, I said, just watch John and I very closely, because you'll learn what to do and what not to do as coaches. But it's time that I must single out some very important people. First of all, I have to give a very, very special thanks to my longtime friend and partner in crime, the guy who was with me almost every step of the way. That would be John Bongiovanni. John, he had the greatest instincts for the game. It was those instincts and your great compassion for our kids that contributed tremendously to our success of the basketball program and girls softball program. You've been a dear and trusted friend over the years who's been there right by my side. In fact, John, this honor that I'm receiving tonight is as much yours as it is mine. I want to thank my cousins for being here tonight, my dear cousins, Rob and Sue Schifano, Ronnie Schifano, and Larry and Kathy King. When they found out about this award, they actually called the hall to demand a recount because of voter fraud. I have to thank I wish my parents could have been here tonight to share in this great evening with me, but I'm very fortunate to have my family here. I want to thank my dear sister Barb and her husband, who was a longtime friend, Jay Warren, Barb Warren and Jay Warren. I want to thank my brother John and his wife, my sister-in-law Karen, and my niece Krista for both being here, representing the family and support. I have to thank my sister-in-laws, Sue Wiley and Peggy Bristol, for sharing in this evening with me tonight, and to thank them for, along with their mom Lorraine and father Joe, for accepting me into the Sullivan family. As I get down to the end here, as a coach, we have to make a lot of sacrifices for our family, and I want to recognize my three daughters, two of which are here with me tonight, and a couple of my dear grandchildren. My daughter Kristen is here with my granddaughter Ava and grandson Owen. My daughter Andrea is here with my new son-in-law Tony Baumler, and of course, unfortunately, my daughter Lauren and grandson and son-in-law TJ could not be here with my grandchildren Maddie and Sam. As I said, as children of coaches, you have to endure some sacrifices, but I want you to know that you guys were always in my heart and were always the light of my life and will continue to be the light of my life. And in closing, I could never forget my loving partner, Colleen. I have been blessed to have you in my life these past 15 years, and in many ways, you actually saved my life. If not for you. Your understanding and support of a coach's lifestyle takes truly a very special person, and you truly are that. You are the best, and I thank you so very much. Thank you all.
Stay here, Dave. Dave, stay here.